You've had a unique journey in the crypto space, facing significant legal challenges, serving some prison time for aiding and abetting the operation of an unlicensed money transmitting business. Can you take us back to that time and share your state of mind during those moments? How did that experience shape your perspective on the industry, influence your role within it?
It's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think about that moment. I was like 22 years old and traveling home from a Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam. And as soon as I got to the airport in JFK, I got arrested, like handcuffed and everything like that by all tons of different federal agents. And not only that, but my arrest was like the front page news and all over the world. I was in prison for like a year and a half. And I got so many letters and books and white papers. And I'm getting letters from Bitcoiners in Malaysia and Hong Kong, handwriting letters.
That's awesome.
It's like, it was beautiful. But they were writing to me for hope. And I wanted to give up because I was in prison. Like I put all my life into this fight and I really fucked up. Like I really made a mistake. Like every person who had ever said to me, don't do this, literally was right. Like I told you so,
Yeah.
But these people were writing to me and I could feel on the other side they needed my hope. At least I had something to show for my work. I went to prison. I'll have that badge of honor for the rest of my life. It's like, he did something stupid, but he went to prison for it, whatever. Yeah. Those people didn't get to go to prison. They got nothing. They did all this work and they told their families and they converted and they wrote their white papers and they fell in love with Bitcoin. They preached on top of the hills and they gave up their jobs and they sacrificed and they changed their beliefs for me. So how could I abandon them? My personal relationship with Vitalik was that he was such a Bitcoin purist back then when he wrote for Bitcoin magazine, and we were friends and we were in the same Skype chat groups, which were there was like one chat group which was everyone who was involved with Bitcoin was on the Bitcoin forums and IRC, but eventually like we were using Skype. And when I go back and Google all those if you Google like Vitalik Buterin and Charlie Shrem, you'll find articles where he was very critical of me before we became friends. And even as we become friends, because like my company BitInstant was becoming a pretty big Bitcoin exchange and we were facilitating the largest amount of people buying and selling Bitcoin. And he didn't like that the company was called a Bitcoin company. Like there was one article where he was like, we need to stop calling BitInstant a Bitcoin company. It's not a Bitcoin company. And then eventually he himself became like so that's what you gotta always
keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind and don't pigeonhole yourself. People feel like they need to pigeonhole themselves into something hard in order to like differentiate themselves from everyone else, but it's the actually opposite. We remember people that are open-minded constantly.
Welcome back to another episode of Cypherpunk'd. Today, we welcome a true pioneer in the cryptocurrency world, Charlie Shrem. Charlie's journey in the crypto space began in 2011 when he co-founded BitInstant, one of the first and largest Bitcoin companies. As a founding member of the Bitcoin Foundation, he's been at the forefront of crypto adoption and advocacy for over a decade. From early Bitcoin advocate to venture capitalist and podcast host, his journey embodies the evolution of the crypto industry itself. Charlie, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
As an early pioneer in the space, how has your vision for cryptocurrency and blockchain technology evolved since 2010? What aspects have surpassed your expectations, and where do you see the most room for growth?
It's a very good question. Over the years, it's really expanded along. I've always tried to keep an open mind. I grew up in a very religious setting where everyone's kind of like follows tradition, kind of closed-minded. Not that it's closed-minded, but you kind of follow like rules that are set in stone. And I realized early on that wasn't the way I wanted to live my life. I wanted to be always open-minded and open to new ideas and things like that. And that's what got me into Bitcoin. But where a lot of friends have fallen along the way, it's not just about being able to keep that same idea of Bitcoin. It needs to evolve. And so you're asking like how have things evolved? Well, like a perfect example was like up until a certain year, we used to call it only Bitcoin. It was only called Bitcoin. And it wasn't until the idea that you could do other things other than Bitcoin, other than financial transactions, things have kind of changed. It's evolved. If you think of it like roots of a tree, all the roots constantly sprout more roots. It used to be very simple. You had Bitcoin, and then you had Ethereum, And then we understood is like you had some other things that were around early on, like Namecoin and a lot of these other altcoins, and they were all very mineable, and you could play around with them, but they weren't really taken seriously because they were all forks of Bitcoin or similar things, and you couldn't really do anything other than financial transactions, which are great, multi-sig technology, and but the idea and scope of Bitcoin was kind of very limited to financial transactions, and that's actually up until this point, it's been kind of very important that way. But then over time, when Vitalik launched Ethereum, and then the idea was that you could, if you have this ledger that's sitting on 10,000 computers, that's constantly, being updated in real time, why not have these 10,000 computers doing other types of compute other than financial transactions? And that's kind of what Vitalik was proposing with Ethereum, which, like, instead of just financial transactions, you can do other thing like have Turing complete code. And I didn't really understand what that meant, but the idea is you could have literally code that's on 24/7 that runs itself and understands how to solve its own errors. And so then you can have like these smart contracts, if you will, or decentralized applications. And it wasn't really like, I was like, so what is a decentralized application? Why is it so cool? But then I understood that cloud computing was getting really big at the time, and the future of the internet was moving to these Amazon Web Services. This was like 2013 or so. And so like, we can compete with that world by allowing people to do those same type of compute, but on decentralized in a decentralized way, across all sorts of computers, and have that relationship between and maybe you have different like where everything's located, and you could have decentralized file storage with you have all these different ideas, decentralized music, you can have titled, you have all these different ideas that eventually came. It's definitely evolved with me, and kind of like, going back to your original question, how have it's changed? It's become something so big, and now crypto is in all facets of life. And we knew that, and I preached that from day one, but I guess I didn't think it would happen this fast.
It's interesting. I was speaking to Jameson Lopp, I think a couple weeks ago, and he was also saying something very similar, that Bitcoin kind of needs to evolve and grow and change. And obviously you mentioned Vitalik, and I think he was a writer. He was one of the first writers at Bitcoin Magazine, and he initially, I feel like, wanted to do a lot of this stuff on Bitcoin, and it just wasn't moving fast enough to allow these things, which I'm kind of torn.
It's interesting because my personal relationship with Vitalik was that he was such a Bitcoin purist back then when he wrote for Bitcoin Magazine, and we were friends, and we were in the same Skype chat groups, which were there was like one chat group which was everyone who was involved with Bitcoin was on the Bitcoin forums and IRC, but eventually like we were using Skype. And when I go back and Google all those if you Google like Vitalik Buterin and Charlie Shrem, you'll find articles where he was very critical of me before we became friends. And even as we become friends, because like my company BitInstant was becoming a pretty big Bitcoin exchange, and we were facilitating the largest amount of people buying and selling Bitcoin. And he didn't like that the company was called a Bitcoin company. Like there was one article where he was like, we need to stop calling BitInstant a Bitcoin company. It's not a Bitcoin company. And then eventually he himself became like so that's what you got to always
keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind, and don't pigeonhole yourself. People feel like they need to pigeonhole themselves into something hard in order to like differentiate themselves from everyone else, but it's the actually opposite. We remember people that are open-minded constantly.
Yeah. I've come to the conclusion that for me, Bitcoin is like this digital gold and this decentralized money for the world, like this base layer. But I often talk to a lot of people, and there's more to life than just money, right? And I think you raised that point when it comes to stuff like decentralized cloud storage. My mind goes to thinking, it sucks that 2 to 3 companies control all of the cloud storage data, and that's a point of attack for people for privacy purposes. And this idea of decentralizing that, I think, is powerful. And there's other things that matter in life aside from money. There are things that are fun, decentralized games, right? You don't need the same level of decentralization that Bitcoin provides to to have a Web3 game and do some of these other things, right?
I've personally taken the principles and mottos. I've personally taken the principles and mottos and ethics that I learned in pillars from Bitcoin and tried to like make it the way I live my life personally, through trials and tribulations, through ups and downs, through good and bad. The same kind of like when I read old books of ethics and things like that, it's the same type of principles. It's like almost like the word decentralized could have been written in those early books that were written by philosophers thousands of years ago.
That's fascinating. Have you ever read this, The Sovereign Individual?
Why does it sound so familiar?
Oh, it's probably one of the greatest books ever written, in my opinion.
No, I don't think I read it. I'm going to check it.
It's really interesting. But one of the things they talk about in the book, so the book was written, I think, in the 90s or 80s or 90s. It was like very old. And they basically made so many predictions about the future, thinking critically about, how things were going to play out and how civilization has evolved over time.
This looks really good.
It is good. And just when you read it, just think these guys wrote this like 30 years before Bitcoin ever existed. And they predicted that Bitcoin would exist. They predicted this idea of decentralization. And they talk about throughout human history, when we were hunter-gatherers, we were more decentralized. And then eventually when we started farming, started informing cities, it was much more centralized. And then we became more decentralized again when it talks about, the Roman Empire and the fall of the Roman Empire and how things spread out. So it's just, we're going through these cycles of, decentralization to centralization to decentralization to centralization.
Yeah,
just
it's like
kind of
a
where we're at
pendulum
now.
swing.
It's like a pendulum swing. So right now we've got, massive governments and huge militaries and all this very centralized nationalism. But the technologies of the future, right? Bitcoin as an example, predicted 20, 30 years before it existed, was going to allow this idea of decentralization, take power away from these centralized entities. And I think that, at least for myself, that's one of the reasons it's so attractive as a technology.
And it's not about taking power in order to like be the other most powerful one. It's about creating a restraint. And that's what all these, if you look at a larger scale, and I've really tried to take a lot of time and study, and I'm writing my book, and I'm writing this kind of like early Bitcoin history days book right now. And I'm trying to figure out where I personally and where Bitcoin and where my early life kind of fits into the larger scheme of thing. And I really see it as an evolution of these sovereign tools that have been built. And it started with BitTorrent, VPNs, all these, even the early internet as itself was created and built as like, so, and every time the internet and parts of it has gotten co-opted, the technologies like Tor that we've built and created, and that large amounts of the population use, it's created like a pendulum balance on the other side. And Bitcoin is an evolution in that. And AI, we're talking about AI. It's like, how cool is it that AI agents can do financial transactions now? That's what crypto does in a decentralized way. You can have decentralized AI agents. It's scary to think about.
That's a wild thought, right?
But that's the relationship. And you can have true smart contracts where it's like you can have like airline insurance, but the airline insurance is not relying on an oracle on the other side saying, did this flight take off or not? You can actually depend on some AI and the other side. And it's like, there's all these things that you can do now. So it's just, but it's empowering the individual. Like, we never lived in a time where it's so easy to start up a new company. It's so easy to take a new idea. The all technologies and all businesses have just created more technologies and more businesses and more revenue streams for people. It's just it's not taken anything away. This has all just created more. Yeah. More. We have more people. We have more population. We needed more energy needs. We have more money now in the bathtub of the financial system. When we printed double the amount, there's just more opportunities now. It's all just given us more.
Did you have you read Mark Andreessen's essay, The Techno-Optimist?
I read it.
That's fantastic, right?
Beautiful. Let's bring it up right now.
Such a great one.
Techno-Optimist Manifesto. Oh, this was a recent one. Yeah. It's exactly
what you're describing right now.
I call myself a software purist. Same type of situation. Yeah, I read this.
Basically, what you just said is the base case for the Techno-Optimist Manifesto. It's very well written, and it describes a lot of the same insights you just provided.
That's how it's been. I mean, there's been a lot of negative things along the way, but it wasn't caused by technology. So
yeah, I mean, all new technologies have negative aspects to them, right? You know, it's like anything, whether it's a car. Right now, there's more people can die in an accident, or you know, the internet, people can do bad things, right? Or you know, even the printing press itself, you know, people could print things that were untrue or whatever.
People did,
and you know, people still do. But you know, we don't stop the evolution, the progress of society just because people can do bad things. People have always been able to do bad things, whether it's a gun or even a shovel or a knife or whatever, right? What do you think about all the growing institutional adoption that's occurring?
It's been really good, and it's been really bad in a way, because the institutional adoption has kind of like tamed us in a way. It's kind of taken over a lot of the volatility. It's taken a lot of people who normally be probably using exchanges and using crypto wallets and apps and learning how to do things on their own. I'm a big fan. It's like there are some people that I know that would never download a crypto wallet no matter how long they live. There's a certain generation of people that, and if those people are using the ETFs in order to like protect their wealth, that's cool with me. But most people should still download a wallet and use crypto and really understand it and play around with Bitcoin and go lose some money in crypto and learn. It's
kind of like a rite of passage.
Yeah, it is a rite of passage.
You're going to love the Bitcoin meetup after this. There's going to be like, you know, 4 or 5 old ladies that are going to ask me to help them with their ledger. But I love it. It's great. You know, it's awesome.
It's interesting because I'm trying to solve that last mile problem in Bitcoin and crypto right now. And because I feel like it's never been solved. I feel like we almost, from day one until now, we almost expect people to like do all the work and it's like there's no shepherding or holding hands. And I know that's been the ethos, and it's always been a way that we differentiate the people that really don't want to be in it versus the people that really do want to be in it. But we can't have that attitude anymore. And if we don't build those good application for those ladies at the meetup, they need to be going to meetups. Like there needs to be like a 1-800 Ask Charlie or something.
That's what we try to do, man. That's what I've been doing for the past 5 to 10 years here. It's exactly that. Have you seen the new Ledger stacks?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I know, isn't it? I just got mine. It's like I can't wait to tell them all to at the meetup. I'm going to bring it up tonight.
All these new hardware wallets are so nice.
Yeah, and I think that's just the evolution of things as we see as time goes on. Even when the internet was very early, it was not really usable for the average person, and now we've got websites, and you can go in a browser and type stuff in, and it's just that graphical user interface and user experience has grown along with the technology, and I think we're just starting to reach that point.
The cool thing that people don't realize about hardware wallets is that everyone automatically assumes that when you have a hardware wallet, it needs to always touch the internet for a transaction to occur. And that's what you would think about the internet, right? You need your transaction to hit some like mainframe database or whatever. But your hardware wallet holds the private keys itself, and it has the software to understand that if you went up to someone else with a hardware wallet who did not have access to the internet either, your two hardware wallets can still transact with each other. And when one of them actually hits the internet at a later time, could then reconcile its ledger and its node with the future. And so therefore you really do have money that can be spent without needing two mobile devices. You don't need men in the middle anymore. And that to me is like, you could even do paper wallets. You could physically hand people. And so that was a big part of it for me.
As someone deeply embedded in the crypto world, how do you balance being an advocate for the technology while also maintaining a critical eye on its limitations or potential drawbacks? We kind of just talked about this a little bit, but anything else you can think of on that front?
I'm really lucky. So I have a podcast called The Charlie Shrem Show. I've been podcasting for 5 years. And even before podcasting, I've hosted debates, given speeches, have run half a dozen companies in executive position, taken so many of these companies public and invested and advised in other ones. The beauty of it, I'm in a very fortunate position that I get to not only interview and debate all thought leaders in the space, but because I've been around for so long and really understand the space in the technology so deeply that I can help kind of shape it for the future. So I'm not afraid to bring up Bitcoin and crypto's limitations, because I know that when we're talking about it and dealing with it, we're doing it to like in a good place. We're doing it to grow it. We're doing it to like make it better and to like figure out the solutions. We're not sitting here talking about Bitcoin and crypto because we're like putting it down and we're going to talk about how shitty it is and we're going to complain. It doesn't work like that with it. So when you're coming into a room and people come and someone brings up they're lamenting or they're talking about a problem in crypto, I know that person has already thought about what that solution is. And it's a really beautiful thing when you're brainstorming with crypto people, because it's going back to how your brain thinks. In crypto, for the last 10 years of my life or 15 years or whatever it is, nothing has been built for me. Nothing was solved for me. I've always had to come at problems with I have to solve it and build for myself. There was no software to send Bitcoin transactions. Yeah. So when people were buying Bitcoin from me, people were giving us cash and we needed to send them Bitcoin. The actual like RPC APIs to build out there was no enterprise Bitcoin software at the time. Mm-hmm. It was like Bitcoin J or Bitcoin D, which was like a node software for the individual. There was no enterprise level software to build it all for ourselves. So my brain is always like in a thought process of like, these are the cards that I'm dealt. How do I figure it out and solve that? And that's what every Bitcoiner I know, probably the way you think. And it's probably the way he thinks. It's just the way we think.
We're on the cutting edge, man.
I love it. You guys are like in the other room trying to figure out how to fit, dozens and dozens of GPUs into a bathtub that, where I could wash my dog. And it's like, you guys are figuring out all these like hard problems, and every question I ask, you've already thought about it. And it's like, and then the problems, when you get to them, it's the problems that everyone else is trying to solve, like on a human level. Humanity has not solved this yet. Yeah. So we're going to go figure that out. Yeah. I mean, that's the cool shit.
You mentioned some of the synergies between AI and crypto. Could you elaborate on how you see these technologies intersecting and potentially revolutionizing various industries?
Yeah, I thought about this a lot. There's two places where I'd like to see crypto really... I'd love to see crypto become a proof of human for the AI industry. And what I mean is that we're going to be moving very fast and rapidly towards this like system where we won't know if we're typing, talking, texting, dealing with a human on the other side. Even voice sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's getting good.
So I'd love to see crypto become an incentivization system to allow for this like proof of human technology. And I don't really know what that solution is, but I know a lot of people are investing and doing a lot of things with it. Mm-hmm. On the other side, we were saying earlier is that you can build these large language models. And they're not just going to become like language models. They're going to become like large data models. They already are. In fact, like I don't even know who came up with the freaking term LLM. Like they really are like data models. Like it should be LDMs or something. Because if we look beyond just like data and typing, there's a lot of type of parsing of certain types of data, more data that humans don't want to give up. It's not just passive like internet data. It's not your browsing or your spending. It's more personal stuff that I think could also move society forward if we have all that data and can amalgamate it, but also we can make money with that. Even simple things like being an accredited investor or like loving a certain type of thing. We don't want to put up that data because of privacy reasons. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to see AI be able to prove that out. But if we could, in a transparent way, show that AI can also, we can monetize that, I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, currently the way it's been working is like all these huge tech corporations are essentially taking everybody's data and just violating people's privacy with really no compensation.
No, there's data marketplaces, and they're great. There's a data marketplace that I went to the other day, and your listeners will flip out. I got to pull it up. And it's called dataraid.ai. Have you heard of this website?
No, I have not.
And it literally, you can type in, and it's where you can buy any type of data. Like you can type in where you live, type in any keyword, type anything you want. And you can type in, and it's like parsed and it's searchable and it's easy. You want voter data, you want crypto, you want any individual type of data, you can buy it. But it's like, I bet you all that data on the other side was scraped from us, from using all these apps on our phones. And this is, I'm not complaining about it. This is okay. This is their business model. Their business model, like how these apps make money, is that they sell that data. And that's totally okay. But it's like, no one has ever kind of like cracked that nut on the other side. And I've always felt that you've not cracked that nut because all the data up until now is free. Like it's already, as soon as you go on the internet, you're giving away this data. So like, why would they pay you for it?
That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I'd rather pay to decide which of my data is released or sold.
That's not gonna change. That's the data that you're giving away now. It's not gonna change. You're not gonna stop giving it.
You don't think so?
I mean, maybe that's someone else to solve that. Someone else. That's not me.
I think about that a lot.
I think there's better data. I think there's really good. It's the stuff that we think about. And I really feel like if there was an incentive to put your feelings and thoughts in some model, but you know that it's private, it's like almost getting paid to talk to ChatGPT.
I like that. I think that's a good idea. And
that's what I'm trying to say.
With people's consent, of course,
yes,
I'm all about that. I think I'm very unhappy with the way, I mean, and the Cypherpunks had talked about this a lot, the way the internet has played out, and essentially, so much of people's personal data, very personal things has been harvested, and Google's probably the worst company at this. And they use it to socially engineer people, manipulate people with search results. And they have every little search result you've ever typed in. They know everything about you, and they know what's going to move the needle when it comes to an election. It's kind of crazy.
The reason is because, look, if like Facebook, you don't think Facebook wants to like have an application that says, hey, like, do you want to see these ads? And like, well, like geo-targeting works because it could follow you all over the internet.
It's lucrative, yeah.
It's lucrative. That's the answer. It's lucrative as hell. It's
no doubt.
And so like, but there has to be a way to tokenize that, or like, so that's what I'm gonna try to figure out. I don't know the answer. You asked me about AI and crypto, so that's what I think about when it comes to that. Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, the way things are evolving and the amount of data people freely give away. Do you see? Does it make you nervous at all to think about a future where, governments and very centralized authorities have all this information about you? Snowden blew the lid off of what the NSA was collecting about people, all their text messages, all their conversations. Plugging all that data into an LLM is, a massive violation of someone's privacy.
Yeah.
Are you nervous about that at all in the future? Or do you think that aspect? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's gonna see. I think you'll see a situation like Eric Voorhees is building out like Venice.ai, which is more private centric. I think you'll see a lot of that. You'll see definitely more of that. Don't forget, like, going back to what we talked about in the early days, Bitcoin as an experiment. And this is kind of like what I come to terms with in my book. Actually, I'll use this podcast as a helper when I'm writing my book, because I'm as I speak it, I'm learning a lot about myself, about the situation. Is that Bitcoin as an experiment, for me at least, was about getting into the hearts of the global citizen. And I think that we've succeeded and are continuing to succeed, because even the advent of AI, like look at Sam Altman from OpenAI. He also has a crypto project. I think like you look at the politicians of today, you look at all the politicians that are running now, the four of them for American, the two presidents, the two presidential candidates and the two vice presidential candidates, all four of them, I read, have a very deep, close relationship with Bitcoin and crypto, and the people around them and their kids. And they understand, at least to some aspect, they understand, if anything, people understand that Bitcoin falls in the bucket of those like alternative software type of tools. They understand that. And that to me is what's most important. And so like like everything that comes next, AI, all the future crypto stuff, everything that we do, software, everything is going to have in its heart that like decentralized nature. I don't think the internet is moving in that centralized pendulum swing. The Facebooks and the Apples and they're not going to exist in a
it's
way.
Web 2, yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
We're
Web
moving
2.
to Web 3.
And call me too much of a techno optimist, but I really do. I do see, and I'm seeing it. All the companies that are raising money, the businesses, just the systems and the methods, it's going back. And so who's going to make money? For your listeners to want to know, build cool apps and websites that make it really easy to like get a grasp and handle on all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for crypto, people shouldn't have to know and understand what blockchain they're using and blah, 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 and get like, it should just be all simple and easy, but apply that to all other industries too. And that's kind of how to make money in the next 10 years.
You mentioned politics. Let me take you back there for a second. We just got back from Nashville. It was a really cool conference. I don't know if you were there, but you probably saw, if you weren't, you saw a bunch of stuff from it. Trump spoke there. RFK Jr. spoke there. We know where they stand. They want to add Bitcoin as a strategic treasury reserve asset, which is good. We didn't see from the other side of the aisle. Kamala did not come. I don't know much about the new vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz. I don't really know where he stands on this whole issue. Did you have any information on that? You mentioned that they both mentioned it, or because last I heard Albert Bailey said that, or somebody said that Kamala said this Bitcoin is money for criminals or something.
Yeah, I read an article this morning and the information about it, and it's like the Democrats are really coming around. Let me take a step back here. I'm not like, I guess what I was trying to say in that situation with politics, it's like I'm not saying that certain politicians, if at all, have any political like side, like so the Democrat side, the Kamala and whoever she picked,
Tim Walz.
I guess what I was trying to say is like, even if it has no part in their own party platform,
mm-hmm.
they recognized. Like, so even if they say nothing
mm-hmm.
behind the scenes, they recognize how detrimental their position has been up until this point.
Mm.
So if at anything, they realize that they're starting from a negative.
Yeah.
And they need to get at least back to zero.
Yeah. I mean, the past 4 years have been pretty rough. I'll say as an entrepreneur in the space.
Yes.
Not
in Florida though.
Florida has been good. Florida's been great. Although, I have been Choke Point 2.0. I was onboarding with a bank that was all in on blockchain right before, this was about 4 years ago, right before, this new administration came in, and they were hosting breakfasts to try to do stuff. And I was like going through the onboarding process, and like right after the new admin came in, like, we're finalizing documents and stuff. It was like, sorry, but we can no longer proceed with this. We can't talk about it anymore. Something happened. So at that, like my warning bells went up. A couple months later, I get a notice from my credit union that I've been using, for like, a decade. I have multiple businesses, all sorts of stuff. Hey, you're too risky. We can't be with you anymore.
No, you don't want to lose your credit union. Courtney and I, my wife, we lose 2 bank accounts a year. Yeah.
So I escalated all the way to the vice president of the credit union. And I basically said, here's your mission statement. It's your bank is based 80% on relationships or 90% on relationships and 10% on here's how our relationship's been over the past decade. Are you going to stand by your mission statement, or are you going to participate in an unethical, unconstitutional debanking of a novel tech industry? And to their credit, they overruled the compliance people or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. So I had to go almost all the way to the top, but to their credit. So
that's
Suncoast Credit Union.
Yeah, I love Suncoast Credit Union. Yeah. It's my favorite. It's my favorite one actually. OG. I want to get a T-shirt. They say you have to be a member for 30 years. No, but there was actually a great credit union back in the day called the Internet Credit Union,
mm-hmm.
and it was started by the guy who created Archive.org, the Wayback Machine.
Mm-hmm.
For a very brief time, he had a credit union. And there was only like 50 of us members. It was based out of New Jersey, and I had a debit card, and I was a member of the credit. It was great.
That's
awesome.
Got
shut down.
So part of what I like about your podcast is, at least getting into your state of mind as you went through certain things that happened in your life and kind of understanding and learning more about you on a personal level, which I think is cool. Did you ever read the Bitcoin Billionaires by Ben Mesrick?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that whole 30% of that story is our story, or more than that's like half the book.
Yeah.
He came down here to interview us for that book.
Mm-hmm. Did he? Because I know it seemed like he talked a lot more to the Winklevoss.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
It was a good book. I mean, it's a great read, and it's like, it's almost pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. It exaggerates a lot, like, but what novels don't, but like,
of course, it's a story.
The core, I mean, he got it pretty good. I just can't wait to see it as a film one day soon.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
How's your relationship with the Winklevoss? Do you guys talk anymore? Or you guys don't talk? How has that changed over the years?
No, nothing.
Nothing? No conversation?
No.
You've had a unique journey in the crypto space, facing significant legal challenges, serving some prison time for aiding and abetting the operation of an unlicensed money transmitting business. Can you take us back to that time and share your state of mind during those moments? How did that experience shape your perspective on the industry, influence your role within it?
Probably a moment changed my life in so many ways, good and for better and for worse. You look at watershed moments in your life. It's probably not a day that goes by that I don't think about that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like 22 years old, and I was dating my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, and we were traveling home from a Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam. And as soon as I got to the airport in JFK, I got arrested, like handcuffed and everything like that, by all tons of different federal agents. And not only that, but my arrest was like the front page news and all over the world. And, it was kind of crazy because the day before I was on the front page of the top, like in color, the day before of like the top Dutch financial newspaper, and like color photos, beautiful, like the front page. I got to go to like in Amsterdam. I went to like an old newsstand and bought 10 copies, and the guy was like, "That's you," And then like the most surreal experience, like an old European newsstand, and see they have like physical newspapers, and so you're on the front. Then the next day, literally land at the airport, and you're in the newspapers for the most complete opposite reason.
That's crazy, right?
You're the golden boy of finance, literally saying that like on the newspaper that I was going to change the future, and I did change the future of finance. Not single handedly. It was a couple of dozen of us, but we did. We're here today. But when I went to prison, I thought it was all over. And I was, not because I thought it was all over just because I didn't, and Bitcoin went into this like epic bear market for a couple of years. So even when I was in prison, like the Bitcoin price just kind of like stagnated. So it almost felt like there was nothing left. And the people that were writing to me, and I was in prison for like a year and a half, and I got so many letters and books and people like writing, and like I could publish a whole book of the letters and white papers and crazy stuff. So like I had it became cool, but it felt like I was being written to, and all over the world. Like, you don't understand, like I'm in this like federal prison in Pennsylvania, and one of my friends who was Austrian came to visit me. And they told me that there was the first time, one of my prison guards who worked there for 10 years, told me the first time he'd ever had a visitor check in with a passport. It's like that's how rare. So I'm getting letters from Bitcoiners in Malaysia and Hong Kong, handwriting letters.
That's
so
awesome.
It's like, it was beautiful. And of course, Courtney and she's updating me, like printing out like front page of Reddit, because our Bitcoin was the only place that people were talking about Bitcoin at times. So it was like, and I couldn't click the links because it was just printable pages. I was like, damn it, I want to see that article. Send it to me. It was like 3-week delay. But I felt like I was being written to by people who had not given up the fight, although everyone around them had. But they were writing to me for hope. And I had wanted to give up. I wanted to give up. Because I was in prison, like I put all my life into this fight, and I really fucked up. Like I really made a mistake. Like every person who had ever said to me, don't do this, literally was right. Like I told you so, you know?
Yeah.
But these people were writing to me and I could feel on the other side, they needed my hope more than ever because they also were, you know, and at least I had something to show for my work. I went to prison. I'll have that badge of honor for the rest of my life. It's like, yeah, you did something stupid, but you went to prison for it, whatever. But those people didn't get to go to prison. They got nothing. They did all this work and they told their families and they converted and they wrote their white papers and they fell in love with Bitcoin. They preached on top of the hills and they gave up their jobs and they sacrificed and they changed their beliefs for me. So how could I abandon them? And the not abandoning them was what allowed me to not abandon myself. And in getting out was a beautiful thing because you had all these people and crypto companies that were flourishing and existed. And like, I'm writing letters like, what am I going to do with my life? What am I going to work? What am I going to do? And I'm getting out and people are like, Charlie, I have 10 companies that I started. You could run one of them. Like, don't worry about it. Brock Pierce said that to me. And like, and then I ended up running my friend Anthony DeOrio's Bitcoin wallet, Jax, we were the first multi-coin wallet ever in existence at a time because he was one of the founders of Ethereum. And at the time it was only Bitcoin wallets and only Ethereum wallets. So Anthony was like, no, we need to do both. And Charlie, can you run it for me? I'm like, yeah, I got nothing else going on. I just got out of jail. So, and that was amazing. And that was amazing. So like, yeah, I don't even know what the question was.
No, you just went with it. I love it. Your story, I mean, it's kind of like the story of Bitcoin itself too, right? There's these glorious highs and then there's these, you know, lows. And it's especially that early on in the industry, fascinating.
Oh yeah. We could definitely reminisce about all those early highs and lows. I mean, like it was crazy because Bitcoin was so small and so new that you can get everyone involved together to kind of like, there was one time that Bitcoin almost died as a software because everyone upgraded to a new version and you would understand
there was some bug or something.
No, it was the simple fact that it wasn't reverse compatible. So the new mining software wasn't. So everyone who had upgraded was mining on a different chain, and you needed all miners to just re-downgrade back to the old one. Getting all Bitcoin miners within like 6 hours
today, that would be impossible.
Impossible because if you needed. If that every second that new chain kept going was a chance that new chain would stick around and people would continue mining it as this alternate chain, and you'd have a breakup of Bitcoin,
like kind of like Bitcoin Cash,
like Bitcoin Cash, but as a mistake with no leadership and at least when Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV split, they split with like a mission.
Yeah. We said at the same time. That's too funny.
So like, imagine if you'd have like a breakup. Oh my God. Like what would happen? We'd be flailing.
Well, you just described receiving all these letters and just all these people all over the world that are interested. That's just like, to me, when I first found Bitcoin and I first like started to like go down that rabbit hole, it's like, that's what it reminds me of. Is like, oh my God, the game theory here, you know, all of the little details that were put together to create this beautiful system. It's just this moment of fascination. And I just was like, you know, wow, look how this changes the game for incentive. Like you mentioned earlier, the restraint, right? It stops governments.
It's such a butterfly effect.
Yes. It's like, oh my God, I need to dedicate my life to this.
It's such a butterfly effect thing because so many things needed to happen even generations ago to certain people. Like Wences Casares is a perfect example, the founder of Zappo Bank. This guy single-handedly brought in the top executives of like Wences was the reason that Bitcoin went from from like hated by Silicon Valley to loved within a 6-month period. But if this guy he was already like a billionaire, but his family, he saw
from South America, right?
Like Argentinian, like hyperinflation.
He understood the value proposition. Yeah.
So he's like, it's not about money for me. It was about like, and he saw it, and it was like people like that. Yeah. It was like all these little things needed to happen.
Wow. Yeah. I read about, I think it was the book debt the first 5,000 years or something by David Graeber. And I think he talks about Wences Casares a lot in that book. So
we lost
to him.
And honestly, the reason that I've been writing the book is because there are a lot of people today that are leaders that deserve more credit, because a lot of people don't know that they actually did a lot more than they. There's a lot of people who unfortunately we lost along the way. A lot of people that are no longer with us that deserve a ton of credit, that if I don't put it into words, won't get that credit.
Well, I'd love to have you back on when you do finish your book, and we can just go. I mean, I think me and Aaron did like 10 to 12 episodes of like hour, 2 hour each.
Oh, that's great.
Going over like all of these different technologies and people that.
How did you write it? Because I'm struggling with like getting, there's a percentage of the book that's the hardest part that I need to get into like a routine and figure out a way to get. It's like the meat of it.
Well, I think you're going to see him at the Bitcoin meetup tonight, so it's a great opportunity to ask him. So, yeah, I'd love to know too. So we're so new that we don't even know how to use the TV yet. So we're actually printing out pieces of we're printing out tweets.
Oh, you have my tweets.
Yeah. So no, this is not your tweet, but I wanted to kind of tie it back to what the government, in my opinion, was very unjust, how they treated you and how they railroaded you, and just the amount of money and taxpayer dollars that was just wasted on. I think my understanding of it is like you knew some guy was buying weed or something, and you just didn't report it, or you didn't.
No, I knew that because we were running going back to BitInstant, like we were like a Coinbase of today. We connected with your bank account, and or you can buy with cash, and we had all these different ways that you can buy Bitcoin and also sell Bitcoin. And I knew that one of my customers was buying Bitcoin and then reselling that Bitcoin on Silk Road. And he was like, and so that's was my crime. Yeah.
Did you kill anybody?
No.
Did you hurt anybody?
No. I mean, and the thing was, it's like what I did is in fact a crime. And that's
you took accountability for that. I think.
Yeah.
Listening to you over the years, I mean, that's understandable. But
yeah, it's 100%.
Were you ever were you an offender before this?
No.
And did you ever commit any other crimes?
No.
So the fact that they locked you up for years, I mean, that's in my opinion fucking ridiculous.
No, and they didn't need to give me any prison time, and a lot of people ridiculous. Even that were a lot. Yeah, but I paid honestly. There's a lot of people that got arrested for the same thing after me that didn't get a lot of time. Yeah, so it's like I took the time for them.
It's
so
ridiculous. So I'm going to read you a tweet that we found today, and I'm going to tie it back to all this. Breaking: the U.S. government has accidentally sent at least $230 million in development assistance to the Taliban since 2021 due to the State Department's failure to properly vet award recipients. What do you think about that?
That's nothing. There's so much more.
Yeah.
There's so much more money leaking. Our financial system is just one big, like, it's leaks on the other side. And it's like on one side you have money coming in that never covers how much money that's going out. Yeah. All the money that's going in is just it's leaking. It's leaking to these things. It goes all over the place. It's just insane. No one even knows where their money goes anymore. And it would be a beautiful thing if we could see that.
I mean, great. Wouldn't it be amazing if I think RFK Jr. suggested this, all of the government expenditures and all of the money that's sent everywhere. What if it was on a blockchain where the public could just transparently see where this money was going? Right.
That was a beautiful thing.
This guy, I think he mentions that, he reported on this. I think his name is Sean Ryan. He brought this up 3 to 4 times to like major media outlets, and they just never responded, never covered it. Was actively almost suppressed.
Because it's a game of whack-a-mole, right? Like there's no solution. You see this shit all the time. And we talk about all the money that's being sent, and being used, and we don't know. You have the Government Accountability Office, and you have all these different places. But with this, it doesn't
seem like there's any accountability ever.
The reason that the media doesn't care is because they're desensitized to it. Yeah. They know. You're telling them what they already know. And it's a game of whack-a-mole. 239 million for this. There's a 500 million for that, or a billion for this. Yeah. It's like, tell them something they already know.
What do you think about Julian Assange being recently plea dealed or whatever they did? What do you think about him? in his situation.
That's it. It's good. It's the end of an era. Finally, you know, it's what people don't realize. You talk about Bitcoin and butterfly effect.
Mm-hmm.
Satoshi, my friend Amir Taki, Amir, and you know, he's another person who doesn't get enough credit for being one of the early founders of Bitcoin. Big anarchist. But
what's his name? Say his name over
Amir, Amirtaaki. Amir was the one who actually suggested to Satoshi to let's get WikiLeaks to accept Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And Satoshi famously said, no, it's a bad idea.
You're kicking the hornet's nest. Coming right at us.
Nest. And that was one of the last things Satoshi said, and it kind of spurned that. And Gavin going to talk to the CIA is why Satoshi left. But so like but what's interesting is that the Assange DAO would actually, like, the crypto community raised like it was like $100 million for Julian Assange, like DAO, saved the Assange legal team like at least 3 times from bankruptcy.
Wow.
So no one realizes like the fact that Julian Assange even had the financial ability to like wait it out, because that's what it was. You know, it's like if anyone can just wait it out, eventually both sides will get whittled down. Public sentiment will be like, what the fuck? It's a waste of time. Figure it out, make a deal, move on. But he couldn't do that without a huge amount of money in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. And that was because of the crypto community. And that is because what's in the heart of what Bitcoin did.
That's an interesting perspective.
I'm telling you, it's DAOs, Dogecoin, using money and using money to speak your mind was never done before.
Yeah.
How would you do it pre-Bitcoin? We didn't have Venmo. We just had PayPal and wire transfers. People couldn't send ACHs to each other. People, we forget that 10 years ago, you couldn't vote with your. That's what you had.
Yeah.
Occupy Wall Street. I mean, I walked by Occupy Wall Street I walked by it to work, to my BitInstant office every day. These were people literally camping out in a park to like protest against the shit that broke during the Great Recession in 2008, 2009. And no one went to jail for that, by the way. But you know why?
It's crazy. Never accountability.
Never accountability. You know why those people had to go sleep in a park? Because you couldn't vote with your money.
Yeah.
You couldn't use your money. You couldn't assemble your money. You couldn't create DAOs. You couldn't. People forget the Occupy Wall Street. You know why they fizzled out? Because they shut down their bank accounts.
Yeah.
Occupy Wall Street couldn't get a bank account. They couldn't amass their voting ability to bring people together and to make TV commercials and to grassroots and to do all these things. Yeah. They stomped them out.
Money really
and
is
they
speech.
Tried with Bitcoin quietly. They were shutting my bank accounts down from day one. And every Bitcoiner listening is nodding their head, knows that they have got your bank account shut down too. That's how they silently tried to stomp us out, but we can't, because Bitcoin is a first time, and now crypto is that we had an opt out.
We could talk for another hour just about the unconstitutional, choke point 1 and choke point 2 operations that occurred. I mean,
it was ridiculous. And honestly,
it's unconstitutional. I mean, they lost in court with the first bout of unbanking, putting pressure through the government on different businesses or concepts or ideas that these, government officials just didn't like when these different administrations have been in power.
There was a Wall Street Journal article. Wall Street Journal did a fucking killer job with investigative journalism. Some of those journalists in that paper are not afraid to ask the hard questions, because they did like a 7 years later on my arrest, talk about how I work with compliance departments now and I help different organizations get their shit together. But they asked the prosecutors, and they went to the departments that arrested me. Go read those articles. They literally pointed out. And so the Operation Choke Point, same offices, it's all the same. There was an effort, but it's okay, because it actually made me, in a positive way, like a much better human being. So I appreciate it.
You learned, you got you turned a bad experience into a positive one, right?
Yeah.
You gained wisdom and life experience. And that's what I gathered from listening to some of your early podcasts talking about a lot of this. How should I respond? I just got there's this thing called KYC refresh. I just got one from Coinbase that, they said,
you're on the list.
Yeah. They said that, we want to know why you're logging in from different places. Why, 40% of your login activities from this area and 30%.
They use AI probably.
Should I just, I want to respond and just I just want to blow up on him and tell him, mind your own fucking business. It doesn't matter where I log in, but I'm thinking of just responding VPN.
The best answer is the truth. I'll be traveling on vacation. I don't know. It just
grinds my gears.
Yeah, I know.
It just seems like you guys are losing the plot here. What's going on with this? This is insane. That you're even asking me this. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know.
So you're telling me not to do that. Just go with the flow.
Yeah, you got to go with the truth on that.
Just bend the knee.
No, yeah.
Just bend the knee. All right. My team is telling me I got to wrap this up. So I got one more question for you. Given your experience with various crypto startups and ventures, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to build in this space during the current market conditions and into the future?
It's interesting question because I too am thinking about this right now. I spent the last couple of years running a VC fund and investing in a lot of different companies. Now I spend a lot of time, I think we invested in 20 companies, and we invested around $13 million. And I spent the last couple of years reviewing thousands of pitches and perfecting the pitch and for anyone and I spent a lot of time helping every entrepreneur that has come to me, even pivot their business if it didn't make sense. And I've literally taken any pieces. If you've had just pieces of what you want to do, as long as you knew what you wanted to do, getting from 0 to 1 has been very easy for me. Even fundraising and finding the right investors and looking at the products. My personal struggle right now is I don't know what to actually. I'm trying to come up with the next, good idea and the next type of thing. Even coming up with that 0. So I don't have any advice for anyone looking at myself right now because I'm trying to figure it out. The best advice that I read it today is when you don't know what to work on, just work on yourself because then
I like that.
The answers will come.
Ah, that's fantastic.
It's so true. And I've been spending a lot of time working on myself in the absence of not knowing what else to do because I have a little bit more time lately.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really good. It's been really nice. But going back to people who have the idea, they kind of know what they want to build and they're ready to take it to the next level. So first thing is that I say people is who's your end customer? Dollars and cents. I'm assuming that you're building a business that's going to be a revenue related business. If you're starting a software AI type company, or you're doing something where you're heavily R&D or it's medical and you're building out, you're trying to solve a big problem and you need to continue raising money for that. I can sidebar on that and help you with that as well. But if you're someone who has a revenue generating business and you want to go from 0 to 1, first thing I do, it's who's your user? Who's your customer? Is it a crypto user? Is it a non-crypto user? Thinking about who's your perfect, and then being able to answer the question, because some old guy is going to come to you or old girl is going to say to you, explain to me the minute someone comes to your app and to your website, they put in $1. How does that equate to revenue coming out? And it literally could seem like the dumbest question to you, but you have to be able to answer the dumbest questions about your business. If you're at any point where your business or your idea, your revenue, your company is too complicated that you cannot explain it to someone on the most layman's of terms, even to change the words, then you got to take a step back. Once you figured that out, the perfect deck, and the deck is important. It's for yourself. And coming up with the right people, getting the right, I could talk for hours on this, but get the right people involved, get the right people that complement your skills, that don't do the same things that you want to do. I always say, get a good finance person, get someone who's just going to be the chief financial officer, because you're not going to want to do that.
Fuck no.
Yeah. Raising money.
We have Kyle.
Raising money is so much easier when you have someone who talks the talk. And so that's as an investor, there's so many different, and then when you're raising money, know who the investor is. This is the best advice I've ever given someone. It's you're not in a boat alone. Whatever you're building or launching, there's probably a bunch of other competitors. If you need to raise money, go look at who invested in them. More often than not, they want to invest in another one. No one is taking one. And more often than not, you can work with that other person. So that's like the best advice for fundraising, like right there. But at the end of the day, crypto's really hard. So if you're going out there and trying to build out like a cool crypto project, contact me. I know tons of investors. I know tons of people that want to, be working on tons of projects and things like that. So yeah.
I got like another 30 questions and I feel like we could go for another 4 hours.
I'll come back on the show. We'll do more.
Charlie Shrem, thank you.
Thank you.